Now that the first show has been announced for the new WCPW, I figured I'd give everybody an opportunity to ask some questions that they may have as to what the new WCPW is going to be all about. So, let's go to our first question.
Hey, big time, Joey Eastman. I'm going to ask you the same question I ask every other company that starts up. What are you going to do to be different, especially where everyone uses all the same guys?
That's a great question, Joey, and I'm glad that you asked it. First things first, the way that we're going to be different from all the existing feds is we're not going to go out there and promise you that we're going to reinvent the wheel. I don't think that the wheel is broken. I think the pro wrestling wheel is just fine. I just think it's stuck. So first thing that I'm going to do is try and get that wheel spinning in the forward moving direction once again. And in order to do that, the number one goal has to be run WCPW like a business. Not like a hobby, not like a glorified social club, but like a business. So the goal has to be to keep making money with everything that we do. And some of the ways that I intend to do that is to use talent that looks like professional wrestlers. I want to be able to put a professional wrestler on my flyer, have a fan pick up that flyer and say, that person makes me want to come to the show. The second thing I have to consider is, does that good-looking professional wrestler have the ability to entertain that fan now that they've gotten in the door and are sitting in one of my seats? So that's question 1 and 2, or problem 1 and 2 that needs to be solved. Getting workers that look the part with enough talent to keep people entertained once they've got them through the door. There's also guidelines that people are going to have to follow if they want to work for the new WCPW. One of them being is they have to submit to criminal background checks. I want to be able to go to our venue partners and assure them that we are not letting dangerous criminals into their building. People will have to be willing to do that, or they simply cannot work for me. I want to work with the right kind of people that are not going to cause problems from a business perspective for the things that I want to accomplish. And another thing that is going to set us apart from the rest of the group, I believe, is that we are going to go back to presenting the product in a way that makes sense. I'm not going to have a ring announcer that is a foot taller than my heavyweight champion. I'm not going to have a referee that is 150 pounds heavier than our biggest heel. There's just simple ways that we can go back to the basics, and something that stood out to me recently, now that it's Survivor Series time, is I was watching the first Survivor Series, and Jesse Ventura made a comment of, look at the size difference between Andre and Patera. And Gorilla Monsoon shot back with, look at the size difference between Patera and Joey Morella, the referee. And that's how it should be done. Your referees and ring announcers should be smaller than your wrestlers, and your wrestlers should have a hierarchy as to height and weight and their importance to the show. So just going back to some simple things, simple presentation ideas that were successful in the past that the business has kind of gotten away from, that is what I'm going to aim to do with the new WCPW. Thank you for asking.
So, big time, my question for you, and I want you to answer this for me personally, I want you to answer this for the masses. What are we to expect from this? Is it going to be the same as the old Windy City Pro Wrestling, which wasn't bad, but are you going to put your own little spin on it? So I want you to enlighten me. I want you to enlighten everybody that's watching this. Smarten us up a little bit, big time, Mr. Boss Man.
Pokerface, you ask a very good question, so let me get right down to answering it. There are a lot of elements of the old WCPW that I fully intend to keep in the new WCPW. Why? Because those elements were successful and they worked. Running the company like a business, having a standard that you set for yourself as being the top promotion, and you firmly believe you're the top promotion, and your company is the one that people should strive to get into. I don't think there's anything wrong with a healthy ego in that regard. One of the things that we are going to do differently, though, is one, we're going to eliminate some of the championship belts. The old WCPW at any time had a roster of 70 people, so you could have 12 different title belts. I don't think that was necessary then. I don't think it's necessary now. So we are probably going to have about 3 or 4 championships that we focus on in order to keep things tight. The other differences are going to be WCPW of the past had a different booking style, and while we had a great depth of, let's just, for lack of a better word, minority talent, black, Asian, Hispanic, we had a wide array of talent from every neighborhood in Chicago. And that was one of the great things that we're going to keep in the new one, but I'm going to present it a different way. Born and bred Chicago boy, north side of Chicago. All of my friends growing up were black, Asian, Hispanic, and I believe that I have a better way of booking talent of those ethnicities. I don't think that just because you're Mexican you should wear a sombrero, clang some burritos together, and be such a stereotype. I don't believe that if you're an African American talent that you have to be a ghetto superstar and get jiggy with it and all this other stuff that used to be done in the past. I don't see why we can't have a successful Hispanic corporate lawyer. I don't see why we can't have a strong, independent black woman wrestler that doesn't have to play into dreadlocks and other stereotypes and things of that nature. So I just think that for the 21st century, the number one way we're going to be different is the way that we present our talent. We're not going to rely on stereotypes as was done in the past, and that way we can have better opportunities with business partners and venues that we will try to get into going forward.
What approach have you taken with your talent scouting?
So far, my approach to talent scouting has been quite simple. I'm looking for people who look like wrestlers, who have physiques, who have professional gear. If you want to come to WCPW wearing jeans and gym shoes or amateur wrestling shoes, I've got no place for you on my roster. If you've got professional gear, if you've got a gimmick, if you've got a physique, even if you don't have a physique but you're a larger-than-life monster that doesn't look like the guy sitting in the front row, those are the people that Big Time is interested in using for the new WCPW. It's all going to be about production, it's going to be about presentation, and it's going to be about not insulting the intelligence of the people I'm asking to pay their hard-earned money to come see my show. So right now, I have no intention of using anybody locally. That ship has sailed on those people, in my opinion, and so anybody who's thinking that Big Time's planning some massive talent raid, you can go to bed easy and sleep easy well at night because I have no interest in your talent, I have no interest in your venues. This is a new project, it's a new era, and I don't want to do the same old thing that everybody has been doing for 20 years. I want to get into new venues, I want to use new people, and that's what I intend to do. So trust me when I say, if you have a roster of talent, I'm not looking at anybody on your roster. It's irrelevant to me, and it's not something that I want to do. So that should clear the way and clear the path for us to work side by side. You do your thing, I do my thing, because the WCPW is going to be its own separate thing, and it's going to be, in my opinion, better than anything else out there.
First of all, Big Time, congratulations on your acquisition of WCPW. We all know WCPW will be new and very much improved. My question to you is, will the WCPW talent be exclusive to WCPW as it was in the past, or will you allow your workers to go out and show their talents elsewhere?
The simple answer is yes. Talent will be exclusive to WCPW. I don't want to share talent that may be working for another promoter. I don't want to use them for any variety of reasons that would cause problems going down the road. So WCPW will have an exclusive roster. We will be looking for people out of state that have no connections to this local scene so that the fans can see something new for a change. I think the days of 5 different feds using the same wrestlers needs to come to an end. And if that's what other people want to do, more power to them. Who am I to say differently? I just know that for where my money's being spent on my company, for my WCPW, I want to present a product that cannot be seen anywhere else, locally especially, and that is what I intend to do.
What is the plan for the new WCPW's marketing strategy?
The marketing strategy for the new WCPW also has to be different than what is going on currently in our scene. There's a lot of new hurdles that modern technology has put in the path of the independent wrestling promoter these days. One of them being YouTube and ways that you could market on there. So we're going to have to look at going back to the basics of marketing. I think a lot of people put too much importance in social media, or too much value in social media. A lot of it just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't mean that to say that, oh, I'm ignorant to how to market. The fact of the matter is, if you're on Facebook and you've got 4,500 people on your friends list, and you send out your show announcement to all 4,500 friends, but you only get a turnout of less than 100 people, that's what doesn't make sense to me. I thought social media is supposed to be this big, powerful tool. You just put it into direct news feed of 4,500 of your so-called friends, but they didn't care enough to come to your show. So either there's a problem with your product and you can't get these 4,500 people interested in your show, or social media is not the powerful marketing tool that a lot of people hype it up to be. So I think that is something that needs to seriously be taken into consideration when I do marketing for the new WCPW. One of the things that I firmly believe in is go back to the old school approach of direct marketing. Get a mailing list. And I'm not talking an email list. I'm talking about get a flyer, put it in the mail, put a stamp on it, and get it into somebody's hand. When they have to touch it, they have to read it. That's a lot better than something that they can swipe right and just get it off their screen immediately. I still believe that there's a lot of value in the old way of doing things, and getting a direct marketing campaign into somebody's home and not into their email box, I think is a smart way to go. So we're going to do a lot of grassroots promoting. I think quite honestly, it's lazy to rely so much on social media these days, and I think that's a big reason for a lot of the small draws in the area. And we're going to try and change it that way. You have to spend money to make money, and there's just too many people trying to take advantage of free ways to market, and those don't seem to be working for a whole lot of people. If you're willing to spend the money on advertising directly, get a sponsored ad maybe on social media, that might work, but I still think the best way is to get your flyer into the hands of the person, not on a car windshield, but into their home. And we're going to see how that approach works, and if it doesn't work, we'll change it up and we'll go from there. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint, so there's going to be a lot of course corrections, I'm sure, over the way, but this is how we intend to do it at the start.
Hey, Big Time, got a question for you here. Do you intend to bring mainstream name talent to the fans of WCPW? Because we all just gotta know.
Jose, you asked one of the most important questions, I think, on this list. So let me just answer it very briefly. No, we're not going to bring in names for the new WCPW, and here's why. I don't think there's anybody that's worth the money that they're asking for as far as the return on investment. There's people who leave TNA right off television, and they're supposed to be hot. You bring them into your show, and again, they're talking into a microphone in front of less than 100 people. And so I'm not sure that there's just anybody out there that you can fly in, pay their fee, pay for their accommodations, and you're going to get the 60 to 100 extra ticket sales necessary just to break even on them. And that to me is just madness. If you have an extra $1,000 around, pay your boys more, pay your girls more. Spend it on your company and reinvest it into your actual product. Don't flush it down the drain on a gimmick that is not going to make your money back for you. And that may seem harsh. I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes when I say that, but back in the day, there were only about 2 names that I thought would have been worthwhile to bring in and hopefully make some money off of. That was Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Honky Tonk Man. They used to get people to come to indie shows, and they used to make a killing at the merchandise table, which a promoter got a piece of. Those days are gone. There's really nobody on the scene anymore that has that kind of value. So we will not be relying on names at all.
Hey, big time. Stone Manson coming at you from beautiful Los Angeles, California. Congrats on the reboot of Windy City, my man. I was going to ask you if you were going to have a middleweight division, but then I thought to myself, I'm the greatest middleweight that ever lived. How could it ever compare? So my real question is, when we were in Windy City, we had a collection of some of the greatest female talent assembled anywhere, certainly in the country and possibly even in the world. In the new Windy City, will women's wrestling be featured as prominently as it was in the old Windy City? I look forward to hearing your answer, and best of luck with everything, my man.
Stone Manson, thank you so much for taking time out of your beautiful day over there. The view from here looks great. So enjoy your day on that pretty beach, and let's get right to the heart of your question. Will WCPW have a women's division? Well, as you mentioned, the history of WCPW's women's division of the past is very, very rich. And long before there was ever anything called a revolution, long before everybody was taking credit for we invented women's wrestling, WCPW was doing it 20 years before everybody else. We took beautiful women with extreme talent and we showcased them as equals to the men, as women athletes, as women champions. And we had a whole division for it, and a lot of those, a lot of the names came through there at that time were extremely beautiful, even more so talented, and yes, we will continue to do that with the new WCPW. You see, if you present women's wrestling properly, and it's not just a bunch of eye candy, you can have the best of both worlds. You can have the wrestling fan purists that want 5-star matches being performed by women, and you can also cater to the people who love to see beautiful women roll around. And if you can tap into the best of those two worlds, it's money. So why wouldn't we do it? There's a lot of plans that I have for the new women's division. There are women that I'm talking with right now and some things that we want to do. And believe me when I say, Raw won't be the only promotion in town that has women main eventing their shows. That's in the works, and I have a lot of respect for female talent, and I always have, and I look forward to working with them again in the future for the new WCPW.
Hey Kirby, the original diva, Crystal White here. I got a question for you. Is the new WCPW going to be running shows out of one building, or will they work a circuit of buildings like we used to do? Inquiring minds want to know.
Sweet baby Jesus, Crystal White, looking as only she can, $1 million body, looking greater than she did 20 years ago. Truly, you have found the fountain of youth. And to answer your question, darling, no, WCPW will not simply be a studio show, and we will not emanate from the same building all of the time. We will in fact be a touring company, just like the WCPW of the past. There's a lot of different places in Chicago that I want to go and bring wrestling to for the very first time, buildings that other people may not have thought of running. So stay tuned and you'll get to see a better idea of what I plan to do as we get further down the road. Right now we're worrying about show number 1 coming live from the north side of Chicago on January 20th. But thank you so much for taking time out of your gorgeous day in Clearwater, Florida, Tampa, Florida, Orlando, Florida, wherever you are in the Sunshine State. Thank you, baby. Pete the Pup, this is a very tricky question to answer because, as I was mentioning before, there are a lot of hurdles in the way for the independent pro wrestling promoter these days as far as what we can do online. As you saw by the announcement video, I'm going to be very aware of using royalty-free music. YouTube in particular now has algorithms that can mark your video if you are using music that you don't have a license for. And since I seem to be the only person in the scene that cares about trademarks and copyrights and things of that nature, I'm going to make a very sincere effort to respect people's intellectual properties, especially going forward. So music's going to be an issue that we have to find a way around if we plan to broadcast on YouTube. But YouTube will not be our sole focus because one of the problems nowadays is YouTube also no longer monetizes pro wrestling videos, meaning you can't put your video on there and collect money from people advertising on it because YouTube has deemed pro wrestling to not be a suitable advertising partner. I know some promotions on the East Coast and overseas are trying to fight this policy, but as of right now, this is the YouTube policy, and it's something that I think any serious businessman who calls himself a wrestling promoter needs to keep in mind. There's a lot of other things that we want to do as far as how to get the name out, how to get the product out to new eyes, and I think YouTube as a free way just to get more people on your people's eyes on your product is still a good way, but there's a lot of other aspects of partnering with YouTube that are no longer feasible, viable, or profitable. In addition to that, DVDs. Who really buys them anymore? So will we put our product out on DVD? If we can get a few local sales, I think that at the beginning we'd be happy with that. But right now there's it's a lot of gray area. It really is a new world as far as technology, and now with things going on with net neutrality and things of this nature, it's something that a businessman who intends to be a wrestling promoter really has to keep in mind about potential pitfalls and legalities that could really hurt you down the road. And I'm going to try and be mindful of that. And so that's going to have to be an evolving answer. Will we be on YouTube? Yes, we will. In what capacity, to what degree, that remains to be seen. You know, Pete, that's really, right now, the million-dollar question. You know, if I have to pull back the curtain and speak sincerely into the camera, I would say that I truly hope that at 41 years old, I don't have to worry about the childish nonsense of the internet that was prevalent, 5, 10, 15, and God forbid 20 years ago. A lot of the people who came up with me that may not like the name Big Time for whatever reason, these are a lot of people whose minds have been made up long ago, and there's nothing you can say that's ever going to change it. There's nothing I could do that's ever going to impress them, and I'm not trying to impress them. These are people who, no matter what this company does, will never buy a ticket to the show, so I'm not going to spend any time or energy thinking about them or trying to concern myself with them. These people, hopefully they're happy with their girlfriends, their fiancés, their wives, their children. They're adults now. And fighting on the internet never made anybody a single dime, myself included. So I think the days of internet feuds and message board wars, that's long since gone. It's in the past, at least as far as I'm concerned it is. If there's people still holding grudges and imaginary hurts and slights from the past, that's their issue to get over. I have nothing to do with that anymore, and I'm going to be too busy trying to make money with a legitimate business, and that's what my focus is on. I don't care about the past. I don't care about internet feuds. I don't care about grudges. That is in the rearview mirror, and it has to be. I'm going to be responsible for people, making people money, making myself money, and returning the investment of the people who have funneled money into the new WCPW. So will there be people who try to mess with the show as they have in the past? I would hope not. I don't think there will be. There's really no reason for it. I'm not trying to use anybody's talent. I'm not going into anybody's venue and stealing their venue. So a lot of the things that they may have worried about in the past are no longer concerns. They have their talent rosters. I'm going to have my talent rosters. Totally separate issues, and I'm just not going to use anybody that works for somebody else. That eliminates a big problem right there. I'm not going to go in and run a venue that 5 other promotions are currently running. That eliminates other issues. So I just don't see what would be the point of anybody trying to get involved in a spiteful way against WCPW. If you don't like Big Time, you don't like the name WCPW, don't come to a show. Don't click on a post. It's really that simple. It was simple 20 years ago, and so many of us just didn't realize it. At 41 years old, I realize it now, and I've got much better things to spend my energy on. So I wish everybody well, and so long to the past.
What type of presents will Big Time have in the new WCPW?
Janine, my beautiful friend of 30 some odd years, I guess you're asking something that a lot of other people want to know. Will Big Time have a role in the new WCPW? I'm sure Big Time will. But in order for WCPW to be successful, this cannot be a vanity project. There are too many other people out there currently using their promotions as a vanity project. And as a social club, and a way to get together with friends and family once a month and entertain them without any real concern for what they're spending and what they're making. And that has never interested me. That has never interested me. I think that's led to a lot of the problems that I've had over the years with various people. I didn't go to wrestling training to hang out with my friends. I didn't choose a life of being thrown around and body slammed in order to have fun. It was always an investment. Training school fee was an investment to learn something that I hope would make me money. And so stroking my ego and getting tossed around and the pain associated with wrestling as a hobby, that other people can do that. I'm not interested in that. I never have been. And if that's rubbed people the wrong way or given them an impression that I think I'm better than they are, that's their cross to bear. That's for them to deal with. I just know what motivates me, and that has always been to treat pro wrestling business like a business. And plus, here's the thing. Big Time was never the main event draw. Big Time was never the guy that got people into the doors. Big Time was the guy that could entertain the people who were already there. I'll give you a perfect example. You can have 2 great ingredients, milk and chocolate syrup. And you can take a glass of milk and you can pour that chocolate syrup about 2 inches thick into the bottom of that glass. And then drink that glass of what's supposed to be chocolate milk. Doesn't taste good. Why? You got tasty milk, you got tasty chocolate syrup. You put them together, they taste like crap. Because nobody stirred it. Big Time's always been the spoon that stirs the ingredients and makes them into what they're supposed to be. And can I do that at 41 years old? I can do that better than most at 41 years old. But if you're expecting to see me in a pair of tights, greasing up the love handles and trying to squeeze into tights and embarrassing myself in the ring, just to stroke my ego and say I played wrestler, you will never see me do that. I have no interest in it. I have too much pride and respect in myself. I have too much pride and respect in the people I expect to buy tickets to my show. So will Big Time have a role on the show? Sure. Will you see Big Time needing the championship belt and a pretty valet to get him over and hogging the spotlight and 6 spots on the show? Absolutely not. And leave that to other people. They seem to be very good at it.
Has Sam Dussehra reached out to you since your purchase of the WCPW trademark went public?
That is the grand question that is on everybody's mind. So the answer to that is simply no. Sam Dussehra didn't reach out to Big Time when news of the trademark purchase broke. Instead, Big Time reached out to Sam Dussehra. See, a lot of people have to understand something that they may not know. This has never been a confrontational thing between me and Sam Dussehra. Matter of fact, Sam Dussehra and myself met 6 years ago in 2011, where we first broached the subject of me possibly buying WCPW intellectual property rights then. We continued that talk on and off for 2 more years, 2012, 2013, and while he liked my ideas and while he personally said that he was confident that I could be the guy to do something with WCPW. We could never agree on the numbers or a contract. So when I found a way to own WCPW in 2015, I went ahead with it, and a lot of people were like, ooh, isn't that stepping on Sam's toes? And I think people have to realize that if I didn't do what I did in 2015, the letters WCPW would be owned by a British company right now. So I actually, in reality, saved WCPW and kept it in Chicago. If anybody wants to be upset about that or see that as disrespectful, I really don't know which leg they have to stand on with that argument. If not for me, the letters would be lost to the Chicago wrestling scene forever. The thing about Sam Dussehra is nobody has more respect for Sam Dussehra as a businessman than Big Time. I respected him then, didn't always agree with him. He respected my talents, and he didn't always agree with me. But we made some money together, and we had a lot of successes together. And there is no bigger fan of Sam Dussehra than I am. And the new WCPW, the door on my end is wide open for Sam to come on down and show up. And WCPW are the letters that Sam built. And I would be a fool not to want to welcome him home in some capacity. And the door is wide open for him to come on and say hello. And if he ever gets back into the wrestling scene, WCPW should be the place where Sam Dussehra does. So hopefully that answers people's questions, and I hope this has been informative. If I need to do another Q&A, ask follow-up questions, and I'll see if I can get that done after the holiday. But until then, take this video and frame it up.